No, it's my queen. You can't have it. Welcome to test, ladies and gentlemen. All right, man. I appreciate you guys very much for stopping by. So I figured I would go ahead and grab a game between Wesley So and another Indian player. So you guys are going to have to forgive me. This is my first time seeing this man's name. So I have Aravindh Chithambaram. Chithambaram. I think that's how you say it. I'm trying to sound, like authentic. But anyways, man. This is taken from a title Tuesday. This is July 4th, and it is the early section. They kind of break it up into two different sections or whatever. But I appreciate everybody for coming by. Anybody who is coming from the Philippines, as always, my people, I will say mabuhay to you. Let me see. It is nighttime, so magandang gabi. Magandang umaga when you wake up and see this way later. I appreciate you guys for stopping by. Anybody who is coming from India, or more specifically, Tamil Nadu, I will say vanakkam to you. And Nandri, I appreciate you guys for stopping by. But man, if you guys are ready to go, homie, let's take a look and see what we got for this game. All right, so we got E4, best by test. We got the move C6. So we do have the Caro-Kann defense. Very solid defense. Some people, they prefer to play the French. It's seen as maybe just slightly better. One of the major benefits of playing the French defense compared to the Caro-Kann, the Caro-Kann over the French defense is when you play the French defense, you do usually have a problem getting this light square bishop out. And so the Caro-Kann somewhat solves the problem. So you're almost always going to see the Caro-Kann go this way, unless somebody really just wants to take a step off. So we do see D4, we got D5, we have E5, the Caro-Kann advanced variation, and then we do see bishop to F5. This is going to be about 97% of the games that you see. Like I said, the entire point of the Caro-Kann is a slight improvement on the structure and the development of your bishop over the French. So if you don't play this way, you kind of might as well play the French. But anyways, we do see the move knight to D2, and this is... it is definitely one of the top moves. It's a little bit lower on the spectrum as far as top moves are concerned. It's about number 4 down. We do see the move E6. And so you guys see that we have achieved a French-like structure, but we do have our bishop outside of that. And one of the trade-offs that you do have is that instead of being able to push C5 in one move, you have gone C6, and then you're going to have to go C5. Usually at some point, so you take 2 moves to do that instead of 1. So, little subtle differences between the 2 of them, but they are very, very similar. We do see knight to B3. This is a very common idea. One of the major issues, like I was saying before, when you do see a C5 push, is that your D4 pawn can be kind of shaky. Once C5 is pushed, sometimes you see knight to C6, queen to B6, and you do have a lot of pressure on this diagonal. So knight to B3 is very logical, just being like, hey, man, I'm just going to super protect my my D4 pawn. We do see knight to D7, knight comes to F3. We see knight to E7. We see bishop to E2. We got knight to G6. We got castles by white. And we do see the move F6. This is going to be a common theme in the French and the Caro-Kann advance. When you have a D4 and E5 pawn, you have a lot of space in the center. So one of the things you really kind of have to do is, push F6 and make a pawn break and try to compromise white structure a little bit. You have 2 ways to do that. You either have F6 or you have C5. Usually you see both of them played, but you see kind of what it did to the knight. Like the knight had to come here, then it had to come here. And that's not super ideal. You would really, really love for your knight to just come to F6 immediately. But you do not get that when you see an E5 type of pawn push. We do see the move rook to E1. Now, with the possibility of this file becoming half open, rook to E1 is definitely not a bad move to make at all. We do see pawn taking F5, and then the novelty of the game, which is knight takes E5. I'm actually a little bit puzzled how that's the novelty because, like I said, one of your goals for moving rook to E1 is putting the rook opposite the king. So it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense in my mind to go pawn takes E5, even though the computer says that's a really good way of playing. But it's kind of like you want to kind of keep it at least somewhat open if you got this rook opposite the king. So, but we do see knight taking E5. We got the move bishop to D6. And then we have the move G4. Now, backing up just a touch. Some of you guys might have been wondering, okay, wait a minute. There's a lot of pressure on this point here. Can I just take the knight? You do not actually win in that variation. You do have knight taking e5, pawn taking e5, knight taking e5, and then you would be looking at bishop to h5. It's not that you don't win, but you are giving quite a bit to white, and it is all due to the fact that this rook is really, really good in the center. You have discovered an attack on this knight, so you would probably see g6. Rook is going to be taking e5, and like I said, you do have a lot of pressure here. You really don't want to take back because the queen is going to take, and you have, I mean, this bishop is coming out. So you just kind of have a little too much to worry about. So that is why we see the move bishop to d6, and we see g4. And I'm not going to lie to you, g4 is very, very committal, and it's not absolutely the best, mostly because you are opening up your king side a little bit. And after you see the move bishop to e4, which is literally the only move, you do see the move f3, and there are some slight problems with the position that you have. f3 and g4 has greatly opened up your king, and the major problem that you have is the fact that your knight is not here, and you would really love for the knight to be there if you are opening up your king in this way, because these are two very vulnerable squares now, especially with this bishop being on this diagonal. So it's not ideal. And if you were trapping the bishop with the move g4, by all means, I mean, you're going to be winning an entire piece. So it's kind of logical, but the bishop did kind of, escape a little bit. And then we see queen to h4. And this is really kind of a poison piece. Wesley So does end up taking it. Pawn takes e4. So it might kind of seem like, man, I've just won me a piece, right? But like I said, the drawbacks of the position are the fact that your king is super wide open. And you really can't develop your pieces fast enough to parry the threats. We do see knight d taking e5, and Wesley So has deemed, like I said, you really don't have a lot of time to really get yourself rolling. Wesley So has deemed it necessary in this position to not even take back the knight on e5, but to go queen to d2. And we have actually reached the point in the game. There is a monstrous move that black can make in this position. If you want to guess that move, go ahead and do so. Okay. It's kind of crazy because it's like one of the most natural moves in the game of chess. So if you were racking your brain trying to think like, man, what can I do here? It really wasn't that hard. It really wasn't all that like crazy. I tried to like build it up like it was crazy, but it's literally just castles. So it's not often that I do a guess the move and it's just castles, but this is like insanely, like by far the best move. You do have kind of some threats of knight to f3 with checks. The bishop does move, so it does kind of uncover the queen to try to do some protecting. But this is just really beautiful because one of the ways that the king can try to kind of run is going to be over here. But with this castles move, not only do you protect your king, but you do put the rook in a very beneficial spot. Now, it seems kind of crazy, but every single variation that you go from here is absolutely mating. It's just, how do you want to get mated? Do you want to get mated in 8, 9, 11, or 18? So if we look at a couple different variations, some of the top moves that we have, it wants you to go pawn takes e5 and just absolutely allow rook to f2. The problem is you're looking at checkmate on h2. And this is computer. This is the way the computer's like, hey, man, this is probably the way you want to play. But it requires you to make this move. No! Yeah, queen to f4. I mean, this is not a move I want to make. So, I mean, you don't really want to go down that way. This is the only way to prevent checkmate as long as possible. So going back, if we see castles, right, you also have bishop to d1. You're recognizing, saying, hey, man, I know knight to f3 with the fork on my queen and my rook, or my queen and my king is there. So let me just still maintain the protection. Let me go back bishop to d1. But you see knight to f3 anyway. Now you have to give up your bishop, and then the rook takes. And this is a very lonely pawn. So you see that it's you kind of have some similarities, between the position that we saw a second ago in this one. But going back, after castles, one move that I wanted to show you guys that I don't even think you guys are going to believe me, that this is an actual move that the computer gives. Bishop to a6. I know you guys don't believe me, bro, but I promise you it's on the screen. It's saying bishop to a6. This is the situation. You have to move this bishop out of the way of the queen to have a chance at protecting at all. So, I mean, you have some options. You can go bishop to d1. You can go bishop here, bishop here, bishop here, bishop here. Like, these are all, like, bad squares. So, it doesn't really matter where you throw the bishop. So, I just thought that was hilariously funny. But anyways, going back to what we had in the game. We did see queen coming up to d2. And we actually see the move knight to c4. So, you see that idea kind of come back as far as the bishop moving away to, you know, do a little bit of protection. This variation from black actually does kind of allow Wesley So to claw just a little bit back into the game. We do see bishop taking c4 because now you can move the bishop away with some, like, you know, with an attack type situation, right? You do see pawn taking c4, and then you finally get a chance to block this bishop, just willingly giving up the knight, like I don't even care about it, and trying to kind of, you know, get your way back into the situation. So the bishop does go back to e7, and then we see the move knight to a5. And I will mention this move in a second. We see now castles by black. We got queen going over to e2. White is definitely like, bro, I'm trying to like unravel my pieces. I got to get out of the way of my bishop. You know, something, right? You do have this move that just kind of smashes all of your dreams, and it is bishop to b4. And you see that this is a truly grim knight on the rim. It is hitting your undefended knight, and it is hitting your bishop right here. So you are kind of sad. Now, going back, you might kind of be like, was there anything better than knight to a5? Because obviously, you know, the knight is trying to kind of hit this undefended pawn right here, right? Forcing b5 and knight takes c6. And it was actually, to avoid all of that, was knight to c5. And then just allowing the bishop to take if it wanted to, stuff like that. And, I mean, you're still doing, like, really, really bad. But, I mean, you are still kind of in the game a little bit. But we did not see that. Like I said, we did see this position here. And we did kind of block with bishop to d2. But black is unraveling their pieces and getting attacking very, very quickly. And so we do see the move knight to f4. We got bishop taking f4, rook taking f4. And then now we do get a chance to take that pawn. But the bishop does take on e1. We got rook taking e1. Queen takes g4. Queen takes g4. Rook takes g4 with check. And it might kind of seem like things have kind of like calmed down quite a bit. But it is in this position that Wesley So resigns the game. And, I mean, you can play on. I mean, you're down heavily. But, I mean, you can kind of play on a little bit. But, I mean, the time is kind of a factor. I mean, you know, it's a blitz game, so they're kind of like low on time. And the problem is, I mean, you are playing a very, very high-rated player. And at the end of the day, you do have double rooks as black against a knight and a rook. So, you know, it's not ideally, you know, where you want to be in the position. So, Malacca C. Aravindh in this one. And so, yeah, man, I mean, it was a pretty interesting game. I mean, it's... You normally, when you see Caro-Kanns and you see French defenses, you normally see very attacking, you know, unbalanced games. You don't really see a lot of draws, so that's really nice. But I appreciate you guys very much for stopping by. Maraming salamat aking makaibigan. Nandri, if you're coming from Tamil Nadu or anywhere in India. And I'll see you guys next time.